All right, hello everybody. Today we are going to review the movie Cocaine Bear, which was kind of one of those films that really feels to me like it was a B-rated movie that definitely made it to the big screen. Now I know this was directed by Elizabeth Banks. Let's just see if I'm thinking correctly of who this is. That makes sense to me as to why she would have directed it, right? Because she's done movies like in the past. Now she did Charlie's Angels. Oh, she directed. No, she was an actress in Charlie's Angels. Didn't she direct it also, though? Let's just see here. She did. What, director. What else has she directed? Producer, director. Okay, so she's directed Movie 43, Pitch Perfect. Yeah, she did do some directing on Charlie's Angels, and now Cocaine Bear. Interesting. She's been a producer on quite a few projects too. But I would say so far out of all her movie ventures, now I'm not probably ever going to watch Pitch Perfect, so I can't really say unless it's suggested to me on my channel by somebody. But I did watch Charlie's Angels a few years ago when it came out. I guess it was 2019. Wow, so yeah, it's been a little bit since I watched it, but I didn't really remember it being too great of a movie, and that wasn't necessarily her fault. I just think it wasn't written very well. So, yeah, for her, I don't think she was a writer on it. So, if she was a director, it was just the story was written poorly. But this one was pretty much exactly what you would expect from this kind of movie. So it was starring Kerry Russell as Sari or Sari. Geez, how did you pronounce her name again? Alan Eckenreich as Eddie, O'Shea Jackson Jr. as David, Ray Liotta as Sid, uh, Asaya Whitlock Jr. as Bob, Brooklyn Prince as Dee Dee, Christian Convery as Henry, uh, Margot Martindale, that makes sense, as Ranger Liz, Jesse Tyler Ferguson as Peter, uh, Christopher Hivju as Olaf. Oh my God, seriously, that's funny. Hannah Hoekstra as Elsa. Um, Aola Smart as Officer Reba. And then we had the three kind of kids that were in the gang. Aaron Holiday played Kid or Stash. J.B. Moore played Vest. And Leo Hanna played Ponytail. And then I guess the two paramedics, which were played by Kae-hun Kim played Beth, and Scott Cease played Tom. And that was basically the entire main cast, yeah, because who was Thornton? I don't even remember him being in the film. So anyway, this is about unless maybe he was the guy that died at the very beginning, who was the guy throwing the packs of cocaine off of the plane, possibly. That might make sense. I suppose that might have been who he was playing. So anyway, this movie starts off with this guy in this plane with a whole bunch of cocaine, and when he goes to actually throw himself off the plane, he ends up hitting his head and falling to his death with this big bag of cocaine. And so Sid, who is like the head drug dealer, I guess, working for the Colombians, has to go and search this Blood Mountain for all this cocaine that he has lost along the way, or I guess not really lost, but is retrieving. And obviously, everybody's kind of after it, including this bear that ends up eating some of it and going absolutely wild and killing uh, anybody it sees. It has like I guess a weird effect on the animal, that's for sure. Um, so anyhow, yeah, this bear basically goes on a killing spree, and this was based on a true story. And now they're already talking about doing sequels of it. So the first couple that dies, well, I guess the couple doesn't die. The wife dies. They're traveling from Switzerland or Sweden, I think, to the States to, I guess, catch some photos of the wildlife there, and obviously things don't go very, very well for them because she ends up getting eaten by the bear because it has done cocaine, and then it gets hooked on the cocaine throughout the movie. So this cop is following basically the drug trail of Sid. So he hears these two guys talking about going up to find this stash or whatever. So he follows them up there, and then his partner, whatever, the one cop that he trusted, Reba, ends up actually betraying him because I guess she was working for Sid too. So I guess he had a lot of people on his payroll anyway, and his son was also working for him, I guess, in a sense. But I guess his son's wife had just died. Or I guess it wasn't too recently, but his son's wife had passed away anyway, and he was still pretty sad about that. So it seemed that Sid was taking care of his son's child and was getting sick of doing all that, and then ends up leaving him behind when he comes to find the drugs, and Sid ends up killing the cop. And what was his character's name again? David ends up losing 2 fingers because the cop shoots them off. Bob ends up shooting his fingers off in an exchange of gunfire there too. So, and it wasn't even like it was I think it was his index finger and ring finger. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense how he was able to shoot those 2 fingers off because they're not even like side by side. So, pretty pretty wild movie. And it was certainly gory in certain spots, I would say. Not really too like I thought it was going to be. It was rated 18A. I thought it was going to have a little bit maybe more horror elements to it, but I guess it was kind of more of a kind of like a thriller comedy type deal, which I feel like is kind of Elizabeth Banks' directing style anyway. But it just worked for this movie with the storyline, and I think adapting it true story onto the screen is hard to do, especially when it's kind of this goofy. But I think it worked well with the storyline, and it is nice to see Ray Liotta in one last film. So it was kind of a fitting tribute to him because he was kind of all over the place with how he acted or like what kind of roles he played too, right? So yeah, he always did a really good job at whatever role he had to be, whatever role he was put in is what I'm trying to say. He did a good job with, especially on this one because he always had that like I don't know really how to describe it, like the killer kind of like demeanor, regardless of what part he played. He's kind of like one of those guys like Liam Neeson or any of them that have that like kind of like threatening look or voice to them, I suppose. So he just works when he's in that kind of role. So then Dee Dee ends up having to run away from the bear because her and her friend Henry, she wanted to go paint the waterfall. Her mom wants her to go to meet her new boyfriend, and they're going to have a weekend of it, but Dee Dee decides to skip school with Henry. They end up running into this cocaine, and they end up doing a little bit of it, so they get pretty high, which was funny. And then she ends up having to obviously run away from the bear and go. I mean, she's brave to go into the bear's cave, because you don't know if there's going to be another bear in there or what. And it seems that the cubs are on the cocaine too, but they're not quite as vicious. They kind of just seem to be kind of like wired out of their minds or whatever. But yeah, the older bear is female, so that would be why she's so territorial, I guess, because she's obviously protecting her young, especially when it seems like Sid's going to end up killing all 3 of the bears just to get this cocaine. He ends up getting like his intestines ripped out and stuff, so that was probably the goriest death of them all, was Sid's. But I would say that he probably had it coming out of most of them because, I mean, he could have just cut his losses like the rest of them said and, grabbed a couple of the bags or a couple of the kilos or whatever and just went back home and said, I'll just pay the difference sort of thing. That way you can get more, right? Like, I don't know why you would continue to go after this bear when it was literally just rampaging, killing everybody. And when the paramedics come, they think it's for a concussion, but it turns out the park ranger has already shot the one kid in the head, not on purpose, by accident. When the bear was sitting there right at the door, she goes to shoot and she has horrible aim, so she misses and hits the kid. And then the bear seems like it's on the roof, but breaks its paw through the doorway and grabs the one guy, and like absolutely just dismantles him completely. Like rips him from limb from like head to toe, which was crazy. And then the paramedic opens the door and sees the bear, and they have to run away from it down the road in the ambulance, and the bear jumps into the ambulance and kills them all, throws the park ranger out on the stretcher, and she just like gets a massive amount of road rash. And then the ambulance crashes into a tree, and the girl flies out. The female paramedic flies out. What was their name again? So Beth flies out of the vehicle. Tom gets eaten, I think. He has like his hand removed or something, and then yeah, it was just what a wild movie to be based on a true story. To even think that some of these events took place is just crazy. Now the sequels for this movie, I believe, were Adderall Alligator, and then something about, was it Meth Puppies or something? I don't know. It's just, if these two stories end up having something to do with truth too, that's just completely wild. But this movie was definitely B-rated, I would say. And it just kind of was one of those ones that everybody just wanted to see make it to the big screen type thing, I think. So yeah, we had a B-rated movie that made it to the big screen, and it was just perfect the way that it ended up being. And I mean, it had some pretty good A-list actors in it, so I gotta give it that. Like, credit where credit is due, because some of those guys, some of the people in this movie have been in much bigger movies than this. So the fact that they signed on to do this role, I think, is kind of funny. But I mean, it's kind of like the Sharknado trend a few years ago. I think if they continue with sequels for this movie, more and more people will want to be on it, right? Just to kind of have a death in the movie. I feel like that's probably where this is going to end up going. But I hope that these sequels actually do have some truth to the story, because that's what makes it, I think, even a little bit better, is the fact that it's such an unbelievable story, but it did actually happen. So I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. I would highly recommend. Now, when this review comes out, it'll be out of theaters, but if you were able to go see it, if you were lucky enough to go see it in theaters, kudos, because I think it was one of those ones that just needed to be seen on the big screen. And I will see you guys in the next review. Bye-bye for now. 9 out of 10 for this movie, if I didn't say that, but I think I did already. And I will see you guys in the next review. Bye-bye.